Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the MMA Corner News Show. I'm your host, Josh Davis, alongside my news panel, head news writer at the MMAcorner.com, Jose Young. Jose, how you doing this evening tonight?
I am fantastic. A little stuffing on the weather, but I am powering through it for you guys.
Straight pimping, that's how we do it at the MMA Corner. Content coordinator, associate editor at the MMAcorner.com, Jason Shelkey. What's up, fellas?
Doing good, man. Got big Chewbacca here, big pimping with the Oakleys, ready to rock and roll.
Dude, that little bird has nicer glasses than I do. That ain't cool. That ain't cool. All right, guys, we got a lot to talk about, but before we do, as always, this show is brought to you by Battle Bomb, the only pain reliever with the knockout power, battlebomb.com. Check them out. Also, Boni Acai. Everyone knows what Boni Acai is. They're some of the best health products out there. Go to the MMAcorner.com. Halfway down the page on the right-hand side, you'll see a big, ugly dude named Vitor Belfort. Click on that ugly face right there, all Boni Acai specials, everything that you need. Get it while it's hot. We're running great specials right now, too. You get a hat with every purchase, all kinds of crazy stuff. Definitely go check. No need, but you can. But again, no need to go to boniacai.com and weed through all of their stuff to get to the promotions. We got it all right there for you. Check them out. All right, guys, holy crap. A lot of stuff has been going on, especially today. Jesus, if you were a part of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, I got to be honest, I don't know how you could sleep tonight. You know, I'm not going to say that they made the wrong decision or the right decision at the moment. What I am going to say is to be on film, laughing, chatting it up, just BSing, while you have a certain individual's livelihood in your hands like it's some kind of joke. I don't know how you sleep at night. But with that being said, that is the top news story of the day. Wanderlei Silva banned for life, fined $70,000 for all of his testosterone or running out on the drug test, whatever you want to call it, nonsense that he's got going on with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So before I start blasting them, Jose, I want to get you, let us know what you think.
Well, I think they're sleeping just fine because, like you said, they're laughing, chatting it up with everybody. Floyd Mayweather comes in, they basically drop rose petals as he walks in. But Wanderlei didn't do him any favors by not showing up. And even when he did show up, I know they stream all of the athletic commissions on Fight Pass now, which is a whole different subject. And the first time he actually showed up, he had like the Van Fight shirt. It was like skin tight, and he was like flexing in his seat and everything. So that didn't do him any favors either. So then he got this attorney that's there for him. I think they just took it as a sign of disrespect and dropped the hammer down hard on him because Mayweather was there. They let him walk about his business after all the nonsense with him. They slapped a couple fines on DC and John Jones and basically just threw Wanderlei to the wolves.
Before I bust it over to Shelky, let me ask you this, Jose. Do you think the suspension was just? Honestly, do you think everything that Wanderlei has done, not cool? No question about it. All the nonsense that he's pulled, as a fan, as a media person, all that kind of stuff, it's garbage. There's no defending that behavior. But did it warrant a lifetime ban? Now, again, he claims that he's retired and whatnot, but we all know what retirement really means. So does the lifetime ban, was it the right call?
I don't think it was the right call just because Sonnen only got 2 years and he tested positive for 5 different drugs. And Wanderlei ran away and admitted he took one diuretic, and which isn't even a performance-enhancing drug. It was for inflammation. So if he hadn't run away, it wouldn't be a full lifetime ban. But I do think a lifetime ban is a little excessive just based on the fact that Sonnen only got 2 for failing for 5 different drugs.
Shelky, jump in here. Give us your thoughts.
You know, first, we have a Twitter question, which is going to probably lead right into my answer, from Matthew Lang 83. In your opinion, was the Wanderlei Silva situation handled correctly by the Nevada State Athletic Commission? I think it's incredibly excessive Because just take a look at what some people have done in the past, right? Josh Barnett has failed 3 drug tests, okay? Still fighting. Quentin Rampage Jackson goes on a massacre in his monster truck down the streets of Los Angeles or Hollywood or wherever the hell he was at. What happened to him? Nothing. I mean, you look at Chael Sonnen. How many tests did he fail? 2-year suspension. Whoop-de-lottie fucking do. Okay. To ban Wanderlei Silva for life for allegedly running from the drug test or whatever it was, and then admitting he took a diuretic to help cut weight. I think that it is completely out of line, especially, talking about the whole, Mayweather thing after, throwing down the red carpet for him, letting him stroll in. I mean, to me, it is just not fair at all. And maybe the Nevada State Athletic Commission is trying to send a message to other fighters that would happen to run from a drug test by dropping this hammer so hard on Wanderlei, but regardless of their reasoning behind it, I still feel it is very, very excessive given what happened.
And you make an interesting point on, you said that they're going to try and make an example of him, because I don't know if anybody remembers, there was a member of the Nevada State Athletic Commission that wanted to ban Sonnen for life. And they ended up giving him a 2-year, and he was mad. He said, no, he needs a lifetime ban, and all the other athletic commissions decided 2 years. They got all kinds of heat for it. So this might be a way to say, we messed up Sonnen, we'll ban Wanderlei.
And that's a very valid point that they are sending messages, because now that Keith Kaiser is out, they've certainly stepped up their game. They've certainly got a whole lot tougher with everything that they do, and we're starting to see it. And personal opinion, I think this commission is out of line and banning him for life. I think that's outrageous. I think they're trying to throw their weight around, trying to scare some people. But here's the thing. You can't scare drugs out of the sport. You really can't. And I hate to say that, but if fear was a deterrent, there wouldn't be drugs in the game already. We know the negative side effects and all that kind of stuff that these performance-enhancing drugs have, and fighters still do them. Not that I agree with it, but they're doing it so they can be the best that they possibly can at their job. Now, if someone came up to me and said, Josh, here's a pill or a drug, whatever, that's going to make you the best at your job that you can possibly be, am I not going to take it? I got to be honest. I'm certainly going to consider it. So fear's not really a deterrent. I think the commission needs to realize that. Not to mention, they need to have standard guidelines. Just period. You just pause for any banned substance. First-time offender, boom, this is what it is, regardless of who you are, when you did it, blah, 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 period. Second-time offender. Now, if you get to a third-time offender, then, yeah, I guess you could talk about a lifetime ban, because obviously he's not getting it and he needs some help. But you got to have some kind of consistency, uniformity, all of that kind of stuff. But again, I'm just an idiot with a website and a computer. What do I know? Shelky, back to you.
Okay, there's one thing here that people may not realize. In boxing, whenever, if you get a suspension post-fight, there's a national list that goes on. So say, you get, and it's for fighter safety, say you get knocked out in California, you receive a 60-day medical suspension, you can't go to, Alabama or someplace that has a weak athletic commission and fight, because there is a national registry for it. There isn't one for mixed martial arts. It is up to the independent athletic commissions to either uphold or say screw you to the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So while he is banned for life in the state of Nevada, he is not banned for life in California. He's not banned for life in New Jersey, Florida, or any other state in the nation. It is up to their discretion to honor what the Nevada State Athletic Commission laid down on Wanderlei. Just something to keep in mind.
It is some people, but to be honest, it doesn't hold a whole lot of. It is widely known that the Nevada State Athletic Commission is pretty much the commission when it comes to that. Most every other commission is going to follow suit. I can guarantee you Vandy's not going to be able to get licensed in California. He's not going to be able to get licensed in Colorado. The UFC certainly isn't going to allow him to get licensed if he came out of quote-unquote retirement. The only thing really that Vandy can do to fight, if that's what he wants to do, is get released from the UFC, go sign with ONE FC over in Asia, and fight over there. Or maybe he could sign with XFC Brazil and fight in Brazil if that's really what he wanted to do. But other than that, as far as the United States goes, he's going to have a hard time, and I don't know. He might be able to fight in the MFC in Canada. Who knows what the Canadian Commission will do? Because those guys are pretty freaking crazy themselves. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and truly what the backlash is. Because unfortunately, I hate to say it, when the steroid bust came out a long time ago with all the NFL players and Kurt Angle and all the pro wrestlers and Shane Carwin from the UFC. Shane Carwin never got suspended by the UFC, or at least not publicly. He was never publicly suspended by any athletic commission, and it was well known that he was getting these things shipped to his house. So I don't know. They need to just standardize this crap and make it uniform all across the frickin' country. If we're using WADA rules, which is, the World Anti-Doping Agency, why don't we have World MMA rules? I mean, seriously, if you're going to govern crap by one set of world rules, then why isn't there an umbrella of world rules to cover everything? I don't know, just a thought. Jose, wrap it up for us.
Well, one thing you guys didn't mention, and everybody knows it, is Nevada State Athletic Commission's biggest priority is making money for the city of Las Vegas. And Wanderlei Silva is not going to be making them any money anymore. He's past his prime. Them just banning him for life, they don't care. Floyd Mayweather brings in hundreds of millions of dollars a night when he's out there. Just brings his entourage out. He makes that city just boatloads of money. They're not going to suspend him. That's ridiculous. They would never do that. Drug testing is expensive. Dana White said it's like what, $80,000, $100,000 to do a random drug test for just a main event. They're not going to want to do that for the entire card, let alone just the main card. I think they do need random drug testing, but they're not going to do it because in the end, the UFC and the Nevada State Athletic Commission is all about making money.
Yeah, there's no question. They're all about making money. And I know the UFC has talked about the expensive costs of drug tests and that kind of stuff. And, in my line of work, unfortunately, I have to drug test people every day. There are days when I drug test more than 20 people, and I guarantee you it doesn't cost us $80,000 to do all these tests. And again, we're testing for everything that you would be for any kind of a sporting event, and probably more so because of the specific stuff that I do. Anyways, it's all a bunch of nonsense. If you want my honest opinion, I think the commission does what they want when they want, just like most everything with people in power. They get together, they jerk each other off and decide what they want to do and lay down the hammer, and us as the peasants, we have to deal with it. But what? The commission went on. Wanderlei wasn't the only thing they were listening to today. One of the other things they listened to today, well, actually, before we get into this one, I want to go back to one other drug-related. We have a couple things that the commission talked about. Cormier and John Jones, which we're going to get into in 1 second. But there was one other fighter that the commission had on their docket today. And it goes back to everything that we talked about related to uniformity and all of that kind of stuff, and how the commission does what they want, when they want, how they want to do it. Kevin Casey, who failed his drug test after the July UFC 175 card, was suspended for 1 year and fined $5,600. Now, not his first incident in this type of stuff, and he got 1 year and a $5,600 fine. We talked about the ban not being fair, so to speak. Is this suspension fair to other fighters? You know, again, he failed the drug test immediately after competing. So it's one thing for Wanderlei to run and not take a test a couple of weeks before a fight. It's another thing to go into a fight with these performance-enhancing drugs in your system, knowing that you could possibly hurt somebody even more because of the drugs that you have in your system, and then fail it and get a lesser suspension. Does that make sense to you guys? Let's start it off with you, Shelky.
Hell no, it doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, they're dropping the hammer on Wanderlei, and he hadn't even stepped inside the octagon. He was still in training camp. You know, Kevin Casey, granted,
wasn't even licensed.
Exactly.
There we go. Exactly.
Yeah, he didn't have a license, nothing. And with Kevin Casey, yeah, he was coming in on short notice, whatever. Maybe he thought that, you know, he wouldn't get caught, or someone within his camp thought he wouldn't get caught. And, you know, he went in there knowing he was juiced up, did the work, then popped positive afterwards, and only got a year and fined, you know, what was it? You said $5,600?
Yeah.
About 35% of his purse, yeah.
So, big deal. You know, I mean, he'll be back. He's got sponsored. I'm sure he made enough sponsorship money off the deal that it's not going to hurt him to be out of action for a year. At stores, they'll find some other stuff for him to do in the meantime, some grappling or, you know, some jiu-jitsu tournaments to make that money. So, you know, I mean, I don't think that sets any sort of precedence moving forward. Because,
Jose, give us your thoughts.
It goes back to Wanderlei's the bigger name. They want to make an example of the bigger name, because when Wanderlei got the lifetime ban, that's all anybody can talk about. Nobody's going to care if Kevin Casey, who's 1-1 in the UFC, lost in the Ultimate Fighter, gets banned for a year. Nobody's going to. If Andrew Craig tested positive or ran away from a drug and got got banned for life, nobody would care. Wanderlei's the big name, and they're going to want to make an example of a big name, saying no one is safe, even though they're trying to, like you said, like scare drugs out of the sport, which is impossible. So Kevin Casey getting the 1-year suspension is a little weird, but it doesn't surprise me just because he's not the name that Wanderlei Silva is.
Oh, Jose, we must share the same brain, because I got to be honest, that's a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about. And two guys with big-ass names, not only big-ass heads and big-ass egos, big-ass names. Daniel Cormier and John Jones. I mean, what they did, I'm just going to be honest, was despicable. I mean, it was complete and total garbage. It's unacceptable in any combat sport, especially in MMA, where we still have politicians who call us, you know, human cockfighters and that kind of stuff. For two grown-ass men, two grown professionals, to get in a fight like they did, is just terrible. Now, first off, Daniel shouldn't have pushed anybody, but he did. But for John Jones to come back throwing punches like we're in high school is really unacceptable. Plus, you're the champion. You know, if you want to shove him back so you can save face, whatever, I get that. That's fine. Shove him back. But to throw punches and then to throw little Dave out of the way so you can throw some more punches, I mean, that is freaking terrible. And then the punishment. I don't know what was even more despicable, the crime that was committed or the punishment that was handed out. Jose, start us off.
This is a weird one. I mean, even the Nevada State Athletic Commission said they don't deal with, like, press conference brawls. They deal with drug failures and like licenses and everything. They themselves said we don't really know. They didn't seem to know what to do. They deliberated for a while, a lot longer than I thought they should have, on what the punishment should have been. They argued about where the fine should go. Somebody suggested the fine, which I agree with. The fine should go towards random drug testing, which I agreed with. But it's going to go to some government body, and they're not going to want to get rid of that money. So they ended up getting fined, and they got some community service hours they have to do. I kind of agree with I didn't know what they should have gotten, because you don't really see this a lot, especially at press conferences, especially with champions, I feel like if it wasn't John Jones and Daniel Cormier, the UFC, not like, let alone the Vast Athletic Commission, they would have had a bigger punishment. Because you saw I think what Jason High got kicked out of the UFC for shoving the ref, and Dana White didn't even watch the tape. It wasn't even that big of a push. He was just frustrated. He kind of pushed the ref. Wasn't a shove. And he got kicked out of the UFC. If this wasn't John Jones and Daniel Cormier, the UFC is bringing the hammer down on somebody. If this is an undercard fighter, they're in huge trouble.
Oh, hell yeah. And, here's the thing. Here's the issue I have. Immediately after this happened, the Nevada State Athletic Commission jumped all over it and said that there would be punishment, that they were going to, launch their investigation, that they were going to watch all the film and do this, that, and the other, again, jerk each other off, whatever it is that they do, and that there would be consequences for their actions. So I agree with you, Jose. To be real honest, I don't know what their jurisdiction for this kind of stuff is. I don't know what the suspension should have been or anything like that. What I do know is if you're the commission and you come out and say you're going to do something, then you got to stick to it. Because now we know, again, if you're an undercard fighter, you do some crap like this, you're done. You're out of the UFC. There's no question. You'll get the Paul Daly treatment. But let's everybody know, again, though, that if you're the John Jones, the Anderson Silvas, the, GSPs of the U, and you want to do some crap like this, you've got a free pass. It might cost you, what, $9,000? Do you think John Jones cares about $9,000? No, he was in there boo-hooing about how he lost his Nike contract. That's all he cared about. He'd wipe his butt with that $9,000 fine that they gave him. He probably had that in his frickin' pocket, paid it before he left. I mean, seriously, that's not any kind of punishment. And so, again, I don't know what they should have done other than keep their mouths shut. Shelky, give us your thoughts.
Well, first off, I'm glad that that Jason High was brought up, because I recently talked to a prominent fighter, and said fighter's opinion on it was if Jason High was one of the big names, like a John Jones, like an Anderson Silva, etc., that would have never happened. And I completely agree with said fighter, because Jason High, he's not a draw, he's not a big name, he's not making any money.
He's not a needle mover.
Exactly. And that's, if he was one of those people, he would have never got a hammer that bad. Anyway, that's said fighter's opinion. Now, back to the whole John Jones, Daniel Cormier thing. How much do we see this stuff happen at other press conferences, in boxing? Well, hell, we saw it inside the Bellator cage. We saw it inside Strikeforce whenever the Diaz brothers and all them, they jumped mayhem. This is all, it happens. Unfortunately, when you have two testosterone-filled athletes that have a disdain for each other, it's going to happen. So if you're going to do it this time, they sure as hell better do it every time moving forward, regardless if it's UFC fighters, if it's boxers, if it's Bellator, if it's, who cares? It needs to stay consistent across all the athletic commissions. If they're going to get, $9,000 community service, this needs to be happening in other commissions as well.
Again, it all goes back to there needs to be some kind of actual uniformity for this stuff across MMA. But it is what it is, and really, who am I to judge the commission? I'm not a commissioner. I don't have that authority. I'm not a part of the good old boys club, so I don't get to hang out on yachts and that kind of crap. So I don't get to make those decisions. But as a person with some kind of common sense, and granted, I won't give myself much credit, but I do have a little bit of common sense. It would make sense to me that if there was some kind of uniformity across the board, this crap wouldn't happen. And if it did, there would be no need for a commission hearing, because this is what the punishment is. This is what your fine's going to be. But I digress. All right, moving right along. There have been a ton of fight announcements related to the UFC this week, and we're going to talk about a couple of them here in just a moment. For those of you who have been living under the rock, whatever, there are a few events this weekend. You have Titan 30 on Friday night, aired on CBS. Definitely check that out. Set your DVRs, because there's also Legacy 35. You'll want to watch that. And then Bellator 126. You can't miss that. And then obviously UFC 178 on Saturday. Moving right along, the return of Nate Diaz. Oh my God, I'm so freaking excited for this. First off, anyone who follows the MMA Corner, who watches the show, who listens to me ramble on, knows how much I love the Diaz brothers. I love hanging out with them. I love it when they fight. They are, as far as just their fighters go, they're two of the ones I enjoy watching the most. I'm so excited for this upcoming fight. Now, Jose, you broke the story for us, so why don't you give us your thoughts?
Well, I might be a little biased because he's fighting in my hometown. Well, not my hometown, my adopted hometown of Phoenix. So Nate Diaz in person, I'm all about that. But I like the matchup. He's fighting Rafael dos Anjos. I think it's if you love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, this is a great matchup. I think they have 19 submission wins between the two of them. Dos Anjos has won 6 out of 7. Knocked out Ben Henderson in his last fight. Nate Diaz hasn't fought, I think, in 10 months. He knocked out Gray Maynard, so both coming off first-round knockouts, both of them. Nate Diaz is a fringe needle mover. I think he's really popular amongst the diehard MMA fans. Some of the casual fans might not be all about him like his brother. And this is, if Dos Anjos can finish Nate Diaz, I think it's hard not to grant him a title shot if Khabib isn't healthy in time, because he does have the win over Cowboy, and he does have the win over Benson Henderson. So I love this matchup, and this is probably one of the most exciting fights in the rest of the year that's not a main event or title fight in my mind.
Shelky.
You know, I honestly think that this is a bad match for Dos Anjos, because after that fight with Benson Henderson, he propelled himself up the rankings and made a statement that he is a legit contender. Now he's fighting Nate Diaz, who, like Jose mentioned, hadn't fought since November. Okay, he's not even ranked. If Dos Anjos loses to Little Diaz, he's going to be shoved way down to the bottom of the ladder. Especially, when the signing of Eddie Alvarez, if he does work against Cerrone, he's going to shoot up there. So I think that this is a really dangerous fight for Dos Anjos to be taking as far as his career progression. If he loses, he's going to be, staring up for a long, long, long time. But if Nate Diaz wins, he's right back at the top of the mix. So, I mean, Diaz has everything to gain. Dos Anjos has everything to lose in this match. Now, why I think it's going to be an awesome fight, I think it's really bad for Dos Anjos and good for Nate.
Agreed. I'll agree with that.
See, and I'll say this, I disagree. And the reason I disagree is because of the point that Jose brought up. If Dos Anjos gets this victory, a victory over Ben Henderson, followed by a victory over Nate Diaz, plus he has the victory over Cerrone, 3 and 1 in his last 4 fights. Dude, how does he not get the title shot? Even if Khabib is healthy. Khabib's coming off the massive injury. He's not going to get an immediate title shot. He's going to have to fight somebody. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for Dos Anjos to put his stamp on the division and earn that title shot. Now, Shelky brings up the rankings, and it's funny because before Nate decided to go on his hiatus and his little holdout, he was ranked. He was in the top 10. It was Dana who basically said that, guess what? Nate's no longer ranked. You guys need to pull him out. He's not fighting. He's not active. Get him out of the rankings. And so that's what happened. Now that he's active, I wouldn't be surprised if he was ranked before he even makes this fight. Because, again, it's going to be on Fox. They're going to want to have the little rankings in front of each fighter's names. Honestly, I'd be willing to bet that Little Diaz will be number 7, number 8 in the top 10 before this fight even happens. Maybe even higher than that. Who knows how how they want to do it. So I think this is a great fight. I think it's a great fight for both guys because, again, if Nate comes back off of his 10-month layoff, knocks out Dos Anjos, who's on a hell of a run right now. He's got his victory over Maynard. He's got his victory over Dos Anjos. He's sitting prime to be in the mix. But, again, make no mistake about it. If Gilbert Melendez is able to beat Anthony Pettis, Diaz won't be asking for a title shot anytime soon. Just big money fights. All right, guys. There were a whole lot of fights that have been announced. We have the return of Todd Duffy. But before we get into all of that, there's one more thing related to the UFC and their conduct policy and all of that kind of stuff that I want to get into. And that is related to the indefinite suspension of Anthony Rumble Johnson and the subsequent contract termination of Thiago Silva. Shoki, start us off on this. What do you think about the UFC suspending Anthony for something that happened 2 years ago, first off, and then releasing Thiago after they brought him back after the charges were dismissed?
Now, the whole Thiago thing, right? The charges were dismissed, but then from what I understand, there was some video that was released.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's when the UFC issued the statement that, like, yeah, we fucked up. He's gone. Basically, to sum it up, that's what they were saying in more politically correct terms. Now, the whole thing with Rumble, Josh has known my feelings about Anthony Johnson over the years. It's been up, it's been down, but to indefinitely suspend him and release him over something that happened a long time ago, which I don't think that he faced any criminal charges for or served, had any sort of, criminal, persecution because of it. Anybody jump in if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. But I think that is totally wrong because, Anthony, granted, he has issues in the past with the whole weight thing, which we can all agree is very disrespectful to the sport. But with his time outside the UFC, he got the whole weight thing under control. He got in a weight class that he deserved to be in, and no one could deny that, people at the, in the light heavyweight division were shitting the pants at the thought of having to fight Rumble right now. He just looks absolutely scary. And for him to get released from the UFC because of some old crap, well, it's the UFC. They can do whatever they want. I don't agree with it because, as a fan, I want to see Anthony Johnson. I want to see him in the big fights. I want to see him fight, the Daniel Cormiers, the John Joneses, the Alexander Gustafssons of the division. And we're getting robbed of that because of some old bull crap. So not only is it, is it a disservice to Anthony Johnson, who now has to find another place to earn a living, but it's also robbing the fans of some potentially great fights. And I don't think that it was right to do that to Rumble at all.
Yeah, you forgot one fight. I want to see Rumble Weight versus Chris Cyborg. I think that, it's a great fight.
Or Jose Aldo.
There you go.
Terrific.
Jose, give us your thoughts.
Well, it surprised me because it is Anthony Johnson, and like we talked about a little while ago, they don't usually bring the hammer down that hard on their big name stars. Like if this was, I can't remember the name of him off the top of my head, that 6'4" featherweight they had that was supposed to fight Diego Brandao, and Bleacher Report wrote that article about he had a domestic assault case.
Yeah.
Like
Josh Rigsby.
No, it was he was in the Army, and he was supposed to fight Diego in Brazil, and Bleacher Report wrote an article that he was kicked out of the Army for beating his wife or something, and he got it was the day of the fight he got released.
Yep.
And it wasn't like Anthony Johnson is suspended. This guy was just cut, he was gone. And he's his wife was we're over it. That was a long time ago. That's past us. Dana White just nope, gone. I don't think this particular case with Anthony Johnson, he wouldn't have been suspended if the Ray Rice thing wasn't going on. Because
Exactly.
the NFL messed up. If the NFL messed up with Ray Rice, Dana White and the UFC's we got it right. They're trying to show that they know what they're doing, even though it's 2 years old, and it's coming out. They do have a history of like bringing down a punishment on people that happened on something that happened a while ago. Like I can't remember her name. It's gonna pop in my head later. But they do have history with this. But it did surprise me. Go ahead.
But hey, if anybody remembers, what about Miss Phil Davis?
Right.
You know, the whole thing with him and his, his wife alleging that, he was getting very violent with her, and while they're doing the hokey pokey and the horizontal hokey pokey in bed, and nothing ever happened to Mr. Wonderful, and this was made public as soon as after it happened, and I can't remember the fallout of it, but it couldn't have been positive for Phil Davis, but he didn't get a slap on the wrist, a suspension, a fine, nothing. Nothing happened. And then, this with Anthony, I think, Jose hit it right on the head. If it wasn't for the way the NFL handled the Ray Rice situation, Rumble wouldn't have got smacked around this hard.
Will Chope was the guy's name, the 6'4" featherweight.
Yeah,
thank you.
I was just about to say it. I looked it up while we were doing that. Now, for me, it just goes back to the lack of consistency in this sport. And here's the thing. Anything, drug related, the UFC's we'll let the commission handle it. The commission fines them, suspends them, all of that kind of stuff. If they can get licensed with the commission, then it's fine with me. Now, we have these domestic violence incidents where the UFC is quick to just flat out kick people out of the UFC, ban them for life, that kind of stuff. Paul Daly. Now, if the drug stuff is okay for the commission to handle, then why isn't the domestic violence stuff okay for the commission to handle? Because again, I don't know how many people know this. Again, I manage fighters, and one of the things that's on these applications is criminal history. And so if you have a domestic violence conviction, or, God forbid, a sex assault conviction, commissions are much lesser to give you an actual license to fight. So they look into that, make sure you've completed treatment. If there was any probation that went along with it, made sure that you complete probation, or if you're still currently on probation, that your probation officer's okay with you fighting, all of that kind of stuff. So again, just asking for some kind of consistency, uniformity, whatever you want to call it. But I do sit back and feel bad for some of these guys. Now, granted, the stuff they've done is horrible, and they need to get that crap corrected. But to basically be told that you can no longer make a living because of it, that's not going to make them less likely to go out and smack another woman around. It's going to make them more likely to go beat up another woman, because in their mind, the woman is the reason why they no longer have a job. So, I don't know. Again, I think we should handle it a little bit differently.
Well, just think about Floyd Mayweather went to jail for domestic assault like 2 years ago.
Exactly. And
he doesn't need money, and they're not going to, like I said at the beginning, they're not going to suspend Floyd Mayweather Jr., Mr. Las Vegas, from boxing. That, like I said, he brings money into the city. So I do agree. They do need, like, the NFL smartly came out and said, first offense, 6 games. So the commission could have something like domestic assault, 6 months, 9 months, something like that. I don't really care, but I agree. They do need something consistent out there.
Yeah, and again, I'm not a commissioner, so it's not up to me to determine the length of any kind of suspension or anything like that. All I'm advocating for is some kind of uniformity. And guess what? You guys don't need to be so independent. You guys are nothing but a boys club in each individual state. You grow that boys club to a national boys club with your own little branches. I mean, you're your own little mini mafia. So why not just freaking band together and be one giant mafia? It's not like we're idiots and we don't know what goes on, because we do. So just make it happen, make it easier for everybody else. I mean, seriously.
Well, that makes too much sense to me. I mean,
it does. It really does. All right, moving on. 2 more fights that I want to discuss before we wrap up the show. I found these fights very interesting. First off, we have Alistair Overeem taking on Stefan Struve. Obviously, Stefan Struve is coming back from all of his heart complications, was supposed to fight Matt Mitrione, had to pull out of that fight moments beforehand due to heart complications. And then we have CB Dalloway versus Lyoto Machida. First off, I feel bad for Alistair. I love Stefan Struve, but we all know where he's at, and that's the very, 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 very bottom of the barrel in the heavyweight division at the moment. And now he's fighting Alistair Overeem, a one-time title contender. Does that tell you enough about what the UFC thinks of Alistair Overeem, right? Jose, give us your thoughts.
Well, I know Alistair said he wanted to fight as soon as possible, so I feel like they could have given him any heavyweight, and he would have said, let's do it. Because I think he just wants to erase that Ben Rothwell dance from everybody's mind. And, like, I don't know. I think it's one of those weird, like, I don't want to say freak show matchups because I don't think the UFC does that a lot, but it's one of those 7-foot fighters versus the guy that looks like an action figure. Like, it's just one of those casual fans see that on a poster and they say, "Whoa, I want to watch that fight." And they are both Dutch. They're both one's Dutch strikers. So I personally think that they just offered Alistair a fight, and he said yes to the very first fight they offered him because he said he wanted to get back in ASAP. So I think it's a good fight for Fox because if somebody turns in on Fox and sees those two, this hulking figures slugging leather at each other, they're going to want to stop and tune in. So I just think it's a good on paper, but these two guys, like you said, both guys are at the bottom of the heavyweight rankings right now, I feel like.
Yeah, and I hate to say this, but Alistair, there's nothing you can do that will erase the image of Ben Rothwell doing the dance over you. I'm sorry. I mean, it sucks, but dude, you could knock out everybody on the planet at this point in time, and I will always remember Ben Rothwell doing his little UTEP two-step all over you, man. All right, Shelky.
You know, after the fight between Overeem and Rothwell, after, Rothwell's milkshake brought all the boys sorry, that was bad, whatever. I recall afterwards we were discussing about the future of Alistair Overeem because, every time we'd watch Big Nog fight, we would all be in consensus that it was time for Big Nog to call it a career. He's been beat up, been through a lot of wars, blah, blah, blah. But then it got brought up that Alistair Overeem's actually been knocked out more than Big Nog.
The most in the UFC's, entire promotion.
Exactly. I mean, if you're including all his pride fights and everything like that, I mean, him laying over the ropes after, getting smashed by Shogun, I mean, that's a picture that no pride fan will ever forget. And so, while this is a good matchup, I think, Alistair's at the bottom of the barrel now. He is a complete flop, plain and simple. I mean, he had his win over Brock after he was coming back from the stomach ailment.
Diverticulitis.
You know how many times I mispronounced that in the last 3 weeks. He beat. So I don't put any stock into that fight. He's been knocked out. 3 of his last 4 fights?
Right.
Okay.
And he was winning too. He was winning all of them.
Yeah.
He was. And so, but the thing is, and I think this is a horrible matchup for Overeem. Yeah, it's true if he had his panic attack, whatever, before his fight against Meathead. But Stefan Struve's a big guy. If he can use his size, it's just going to be a complete one-sided mismatch. I mean, you see Overeem, and I just don't see a guy that, he wants to fight. I think he wants the money for fighting, but I don't see a guy that really wants to fight. And so I don't want to see Alistair Overeem in the UFC anymore just because as a human being, I don't want to see another human being's brains keep on getting scrambled in violent fashion. So that's my take on it.
And a few years ago on the Benson Henderson Nate Diaz card, they did have BJ Penn fight Rory McDonald on the main card, and that was about as one-sided of a beatdown as one can watch on Fox. The next fight was Gustafsson absolutely mauling Shogun in the co-main event. So the UFC likes to put these mismatches on, usually on the December fight card, because they get that extra promotion with the NFL. People tune in, and the casual fans will see some guy just get his head clean, like as Conor McGregor calls it, he knocks the head clean off, and they go, "Oh, I love violence." So the UFC making all these weird matchups, kind of setting up these big knockouts and dominant performances. That doesn't surprise me that they're putting it on this fight card.
No, Jose, you bring up an excellent point. And to go back to what Shoki was just saying, I got to be honest, and I hate the fact that I'm going to say this, but it is the truth. I do want to see Alistair Overeem fight again. I want to see Alistair Overeem fight again on steroids or horse meat or whatever it was that he was taking. Because juiced up Overeem is a bad dude. You know, I was about to curse. It's a family show. Myself in check. He is a bad dude on steroids, and Alistair Overeem on steroids could be a heavyweight champion. And I would love to see that guy continue to compete with whatever it is that he has to use to cheat. But that's just a fan in me who wants to see the best fights. Now, again, I don't want him to do that because I don't want him to suffer the long-lasting negative effects that he will suffer on my behalf. There's no point in it. However, if, you know, it was a perfect world, yeah, juice them up. Let's see like the best in the business, and let's get after it. All right. CB Dollaway, Lyoto Machida. I got to be honest. I go back and forth on this fight. I mean, obviously, Lyoto's coming off the one-sided ass whooping that women put on him. Now, he had the one good round or the flashes, whatever, but he didn't do anything in that fight that led me to think, all right, you know, if he changes up this or that, he can win that fight. So I understand, you know, not giving him someone that you could take a title shot away from if Lyoto wins, because that would hurt the division. But dropping him all the way down to CB Dollaway. Now, again, CB's looking good. He's on the rise. But, again, if you're Lyoto Machida, is this a fight that you really want to take? Shoki, start us off.
I don't think it's a fight that if you're Lyoto Machida that you want to take, but if you're CB Dollaway, you definitely want this fight.
Hell yeah.
Well, of course you want it if you're CB.
Well, check this out, right? I mean, we've been talking about, you know, this whole year about how it's been like a year of resurgence. And, you know, we had, you know, Matt Brown making that big run. And now we have CB Dollaway winning 4 out of his last 5 with his only loss being that, you know, that split decision loss against Tim Boesch.
Which he won.
Yes, I was just going to say, he should have won his last 5 straight. You know, so the inner fan in me wants to see this fight because I really think that CB Dollaway, you know, this is his time to run. He's 31 years old, so, you know, if he's going to make a run for the title, this is going to be it. Machida's 36. It's very easy to say that he is perhaps on the downside of his career, and we've already seen he can't keep his own with Weidman. He's not going to be a title contender against anybody. And I think that, you know, anybody in the top 10 has a very good chance of defeating Machida. You know, you got Dollaway at 9. He's shown, like I already said, he's shown that he can compete with the, you know, top of the division. So I think that this is a great fight for CB Dollaway. And unfortunately, Machida is in a position where he can no longer pick and choose. You know, he doesn't have the call. He can't call the shots anymore. He's going to fight whoever's put in front of him because he has to, because he's kind of stuck in no man's land within the middleweight division.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said. If you're CB Dollaway, you're not going to say no, because if you beat Machida, you are in the top 5 of the middleweight division. And he should have won 5 in a row, and I think Machida took this because it's a main event. If coming off a loss, not a lot of people get offered a main event opportunity, especially in their home country. So he probably took it because it's the main event. And I wouldn't be surprised. Well, actually, he might take the Uriah Faber route and just fight anybody they give him, or Donald Cerrone. You saw how those two did it. They just said yes to everybody, beat a bunch of guys that aren't in the top 10, but they beat them. Just like you saw what happened to Chad Mendes. He's beaten 5 guys in a row, and I'm pretty sure only one was in the top 10. Now he has a title shot. So if Machida wants another title shot, he, like you said, he can't pick and choose. He might just say yes to anybody that comes his way, beats them, and then eventually, if he keeps winning, you can't say no to him getting another title shot if Chris Weidman loses the belt at some point.
I think you guys are spot on with that. The other thing I think that we need to take into consideration is I think this is contract negotiation fights.
True.
He's basically saying, you know what, I'll do whatever you guys want. Yes, I'm no longer the title contender, but I'm still a draw. Put me in Brazil. This is what I can do. I can still put asses in the seats. So you guys still need to pay me money. Now, Lyota's contract is pretty solid. I believe it's reported as 2-2. So, you know, he's probably with sponsorship making $500,000 fight, give or take. And then whatever percentage he gets of pay-per-views, which standard is, you know, 3% under 500,000 buys, 7% for 500 to 750, and then so on and so forth. So, you know, he's making some cheese, but I think that's probably what this is to keep his percentage points, you know, where he wants them to be, knowing that it's going to be a while before he gets a title shot and gets that kind of money.
And I just want to say I'm kind of surprised because I talked to CB a few months ago, and he was like, I want to be on the Arizona card because he is from Arizona. I am very surprised that he took a fight in Brazil over a fight in his hometown. I'm assuming it's only because it's Lyoto Machida, but I'm very surprised that he didn't put that fight even in the main event, because like you said before, if Machida wins, he's knocking out a potential title contender, and he's not getting a title shot or the win over CB Dollaway. The main event of UFC in Arizona is that exact scenario. If Junior Dos Santos beats Stipe Miocic, he's not getting a title shot. And if Junior Dos Santos beats Stipe Miocic, that's who I believe is the #2 heavyweight, just knocking off one of the hottest heavyweight. He's not even a prospect anymore. He's one of the hottest fighters in the division, and you're losing a title contender. Yes, it's a fun fight for fans because they're so good, but Stipe Miocic has a lot of pressure on him. Where if he loses, he gets pushed down a little far.
Yeah, I mean, Stipe's in a very bad position with this fight against Junior Dos Santos. I mean, if he loses this fight, everything that he's worked for is gone.
Unless it's one of those barn burner wars that's like a 5-round war, and both like one of those Marcon Bigfoot fights. If it's a fight like that, win or lose, that's a win for him.
Oh, without question. Now, if he just gets his ass whooped, I mean, we all know that right now, JDS is the gatekeeper to Cain Velasquez. JDS is not getting another title shot as long as Cain holds the belt. Again, in the last 10 rounds, JDS did nothing for any, and I'm the biggest JDS supporter out there. He did nothing to offer any reason to think that he's ever going to win that fight again. So he's not getting a title shot. He beats Stipe, the UFC screwed. I mean, who else are they going to have for a contender? Seriously.
Especially because that division is very shallow.
You know, at the point you're hoping that Cain Velasquez loses to Fabricio Verdum, so you have some kind of title fights in the future. You are screwed. And I think if Machida beats CB Dollaway, the same thing is going to be said there. However, I think the main reason why CB's not fighting in Arizona is money, my brother.
True.
I have no doubts that the UFC is paying CB Dollaway a ton of cash as far as CB is concerned to get him to go out to Brazil. I'm sure in addition to the coaches, they're probably paying for his whole team to go out there. I'm sure they're hooking him up to make this happen, because not only did he tell you that, I believe he told anyone who would listen that he wanted that Arizona card. He you know, if you don't know, he's an Arizona State graduate, All-American on the wrestling team, wrestled with Ryan Bader. Without question, he wanted to be on that card. So that tells me that the UFC made it very, very much worth his while to take this fight. Plus, you get a fight Lyoto Machida. If you win that fight in his backyard, holy shit!
No kidding.
Come on, seriously.
True.
Hey, and something about the heavyweights, just real quick, because we were talking about the JDS Stipe fight, right? If Stipe loses, this is who's underneath him: Mark Hunt, Josh Barnett, Andre Arlovsky, Bigfoot Silva, Roy Nelson, and Ben Rothwell. That's the rest of the top 10. None of those guys are going to anywhere close to Cain Velasquez's level. So, I mean, that tells you how shallow the division is. You have the UFC's heavyweight champion from 2005 ranked in the top 10. Okay? Stipe loses.
You have Mark
heavyweight
Hunt
division is going to
ranked
be
in the top 5.
Yes, who entered the UFC with a negative, a sub 500 record.
A losing record.
I think he was 4-5. Correct me if I'm wrong. When he signed his UFC contract, and he is number 5 in the division. Okay, the UFC's heavyweight division needs some new blood desperately. They need to be hitting up, RFA, World Series of Fighting. They need to be getting any sort of heavyweight competition they can, because heavyweight division is shallow and it sucks.
And arguably the hottest fighter outside of Stipe right now is Andre Arlovsky, coming off that first-round knockout. He has a broken wrist. He's going to be sidelined for a while. Josh Barnett hasn't made any indication that he's in any hurry to get back. So I would give Mark Hunt the winner of the main event. He wants to rematch JDS, and if he beats Stipe again, then I think the UFC wants Mark Hunt to fight for the title. Because if you just put Mark Hunt on promos next to Cain Velasquez promos, that's just violence in a 30-second commercial. That sells. For the hardcore fans, Cain's gonna win. But if I'm like I said earlier, if I'm a casual fan and I see this massive Samoan man just walk with all these walk-off knockouts going up against this Mexican tank, that is a fight. I'm gonna be like, what the hell is that all about? I want to tune into that.
No, you're right. And to be honest, I want Mark Hunt to get a title shot. I joke about him being ranked in the top 5, but look at what he's done. I mean, he's seriously been an ass-whooping machine over his time in the UFC. So I want Mark Hunt to get a title shot. I think it's freaking great.
Pride never die, baby.
Never.
Pride never die.
Exactly. All right, guys. That is going to do it for this episode of the MMA Corner News Show. Jose, give us your final thoughts.
Oh, man. If anybody watched that, UFC Embedded, Conor McGregor's getting super Hollywood on us, but eating filet mignon in Dana White's suite in Vegas.
And, guys, if you haven't seen that video, go to the MMAcorner.com. It's up there. It's a great video to watch. I've watched it several times. Yeah, get on it. Shelky, final thoughts.
I'm going to do a little something off of MMA really quick, because we've seen a lot of this, domestic violence and all this, all these horrible stories, shootings recently. And so while it's great while everybody's doing this ice bucket challenge and everyone wears pink to save the Tatas, whatever, remember that there are a lot of Americans out there that, suffer through mental disorders every day. And most of the time they just need someone to talk to. So if you know someone that's going through depression, going through a hard time, whatever, may not be all there upstairs, take the time to talk to them. It'll make a world of difference for them, and hopefully talk one of these potential people that could do something bad off the bridge.
Well said.
Well, and that's why I started doing these shows, so I had somebody to talk to. That's how you do it. All right, guys, again, that is our show. As always, these episodes are brought to you by BattleBomb, the only pain reliever with the knockout power. BattleBomb.com. Definitely check them out. Bony aside, everything you need for your healthcare products. Go to the MMAcorner.com, click on V4, check out the Bony aside product line. All right, guys, we will be back tomorrow night with the MMA Corner Prediction Show, giving you our predictions for UFC 178. Then we will be back with the MMA Corner Recap Show, giving you a recap on everything that was UFC 178 on Saturday. And then again, next Tuesday, as always, we will be back with the news show. So until then, I'm Josh Davis for Jose Young, Jason Shelkey. Keep living the MMA Corner lifestyle, y'all.